IEMT book, and here she goes, very well timed there, Sonia. As you can see, when she's holding the book up, you can't see Sonia at all. So we're going to basically, it's just a discussion about the book, how and why she wrote it, and basically just a general chat about IEMT as well. So if we're all ready, I'm going to kick off with the first question, and the first question is, Sonia, that's you. Is this the first book you've written? And also, have you ever published any medical papers?
Well, yes, it is the first actual full-on book that I've written, but I have written other things. I have been...
Oh. Sorry, Sonia, wait a minute, sorry. Sonia, I've put you on mute for some silly reason, which I did not mean to do so. There we go.
Okay, I've unmuted it this end.
There we go, perfect, right. I'll try not to do that again.
But the answer to that question, this is the first full manual of anything that I've written in book format, but I have written stories before. I'm also a musician, so I've written lots of songs. And I have in this book, which got published a couple of years back by Wirral Libraries and the Arts Council, actually a short story that I wrote.
Wow.
So it's not just the world of non-fiction stuff. I'm really interested in fiction, and I've taken a couple of courses in non-fiction writing. I've got another course coming up in October, November, with a view to writing a novel. So
perfect. So you have some
medical papers. Sorry. Yes, I have in the past. I used to work in the field of genetics, the Haemophilia Centre in St Thomas's Hospital, and there was a huge research centre, although we did diagnostic stuff as well. So I got involved in doing a lot of stuff with clinical papers. So my name will be on things about Christmas disease and stuff like that. And also when I was doing my MSc, we were investigating something called viscosupplementation, which was new onto the market, which my then husband, Steve, he actually was the first person to sort of sell this, because he was also an ODA in various things in past life. And so I formulated the first ever clinical research non-clinical research into viscosupplementation, and that got picked up by EULAR, which is a European Alliance for Rheumatoid sort of conditions. Wow. And that got published in their journals and all of that. So there we go.
Excellent. So let me ask you, with writing this book then, what was it you were why did you do it, basically? What were you hoping to achieve from it? What were you lying there one night thinking, I've got to write a book on IEMT? Or how did it come about?
No, it's because I asked Andy Austin back in the day, is there a book on IEMT? And he said, no. I said, is there going to be a book on IEMT? And he said, no, I've got no intention of writing one. I said, well, would you mind if I wrote one then? And he said, no, go for it, because I've got no intentions of doing it. And I just thought, if I asked, is there a book? Other people are going to ask, is there a book? And I just felt we needed something as a kind of reference material, mainly for practitioners, but not just for practitioners. The way I've written the book, it can be used, and the way I teach it in trainings anyway is for self-use for people. Yeah. So I thought, it would be really good to have something that not only people could refer to, but also it gets the name of IEMT beyond just trainings. It goes on to Amazon or whatever it goes to.
Yes.
And other people might pick up on the fact that there is this alternative modality to EMDR or EMI or whatever. So that's really,
and I think that's the thing really as well. Once something has a book, it becomes more of an authority. And now I've worked with an awful lot of speakers, and if you're a speaker and if you write your own book on something, it makes you an authority in such a subject. And I think, I'm well with you on sort of trying to promote just IEMT in general, because I believe, a rising tide lifts all vessels in that sense. And so, no, that's really, really good. Now, so this is the first book of this type you've written. Now I know you've got some points, because a lot of people do contact me about how do you start, because there's courses, there's videos, everything like that. So could you just tell us a little bit about what your process was and how you actually achieved this?
Well, I did sort of give you a little hint, didn't I, before, that I didn't really have a process per se, but then bear in mind I was lucky because I already had a subject. So I had the subject matter. I'd already written my manual, which I enhance all the time, it's forever being tweaked and changed. And so I sent that to Andy, and he said, oh my God, this is so good, it could be a book.
Yeah.
And the same for the advanced one. He said, can't you just publish this? And so I had a whole load of subject matter. Now, being, scientist type of person, I like to do a little bit of research. Don't want to just take words, of, say, Andy Austin on stuff. I'm going to have a look around the subject. I'm going to look at things that are similar. I'm going to look at, well, we know that there is no fMRI studies with IEMT, but of course there is with, I think EMI now has some, brain spotting and EMDR. So because it's going to be a very similar process, isn't it? Brain-wise, I thought, well, there must be ways of extrapolating some of this information, stuff about eye movement work, stuff about the brain, that is going to still be relevant for what we do.
Yeah.
So I did, some research. What I didn't do was read loads of books that were already published, because I thought I didn't want that to bias me.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be from my voice, not from a voice from somebody else. Although, of course, there's stuff from Andy in the book, as you know. And what I did do is I interviewed Andy, obviously, several times, and other people that knew him. I did originally start off thinking I was going to do it kind of like an autobiography almost of him, but that kind of just didn't work, and people weren't available for stuff. So I thought, let's cut that out. Yes, let's put a bit of his story in, because it's relevant to the development of the modality. So that's the way I started. But I have to say, for me, it was very stop-start, for various reasons, like moving up north, my dad being unwell and stuff. So I'd started, put it down, and didn't pick it up again for about 18 months or so. And then in lockdown, that gave me a real push to do it. And as I say, my husband also gave me the proverbial metaphorical boot up the arse to get it over the line. He says, get it finished. You've done so much work. You've only got 1 or 2 chapters to go. What's the point in it just sitting there? So that gave me the push to get it sorted. But I can say I have got some tips that I found. If people are interested in writing a book, if I just share my screen with you. Yeah. So it says, I just Googled around today, and there's loads of information, guys. If you're interested in writing books, it says start with your positioning and outline. And I did do that. So I did do an outline of the book. But of course, it's simple for me because I had a structure of a course anyway. Yeah, but it did add some extra things in, as you know. Make a research plan. I'm not very good at planning, I have to say. but for those of you that are and like your plans, make the plan, but follow through on the plan. Don't just make a plan and then leave it there. Ask the internet. Oh, where would we be? Where would we be without Dr.
So
Google?
That's on Ask Jeeves, yeah? You want to ask?
Yeah. Also, I have accounts of things like PubMed because of my, the science and stuff I've done in the past. But the internet is really good. Ask people, talk to people as well. Read books. Yes, there are books and things you can read. As I say, I decided not to for this subject. Well, there wasn't a book to read, was there? There is no IEMT book. It was going to be the first. So, but that's a tip if there's something on that subject that you can get some background on. As I say, talk to people. For me, this is, and when I always did my research, doing my BSc and my MSc, there was a professor somewhere doing something that I thought was really interesting. I just got straight on the phone to them, or I'd send them a letter back in the day or an email. And you know what? They always got back to me. And even the drugs companies, because I was looking at, for my BSc, I was looking at sort of non-pharmacological treatments for breast pain versus pharmacological. So I got onto companies that were doing drugs, but also companies doing things like even primrose oil and essential oils and like stuff. And they sent me loads of stuff, and people are really interested if you're interested in their thing.
Yeah. And and now these days, because with the internet, you can, I believe what the kids say, slide into someone's DMs. You can contact people so easily on LinkedIn,
Absolutely.
Instagram, Facebook,
Absolutely.
so cool.
Yeah, so talk to people, interview them if you can, record it, and then you've got a load of material that's going to be really, really useful for you. You might want to do bits of survey. Now, I did. So with the cover of the book, it was chosen by committee. So at one of my IEMT parties, which obviously I hope you're all going to come along to the next one in November, 6th of November, but I put up a survey because you can do that now on Zoom. It's brilliant. You can write in questions, put up a survey. So I put up 3 versions of the cover and people chose. And so this is why this and this colour, the green colour, you can't really see. I've got a green screen here. It's very difficult to see the green. But that was chosen by everybody.
I've got to say, the actual quality of the book, and I think everyone who's got a copy will say, it's fantastic. You know what I mean? It's because I've seen a lot of self-published books, should we say. When I was running interesting talks, people would sometimes bring me like a printout, like, it's a really nice
limp leaflet.
Oh, what was it like when you actually got, did you get a batch or did you get a one-off first? Did you get a batch?
No, so what I did is I got 200 printed at first. And I have to say, the company I chose was not the most expensive. There's a lot more expensive companies out there, but the paper quality, 100 gram, really good, pure white. The card quality was good. I could choose whether it was matte or shiny, and I wanted it nice and shiny because the eye needed to stand out, I think.
Yeah, of course.
So, researching all of that. So how are you going to publish it? You're going to go straight to Amazon?
Yeah.
Or you actually going to, and I wanted, because this is the first book, I wanted to have the experience of wrapping them all up and putting a little note in and putting my little thank you slip in.
Yeah,
and
the actual thing that came in was all really nice. And I think it's really important when you're trying to get across something in this therapy / medical / wellness field, whatever we're sort of in, that it has to be like one of my ex-flatmate before he left me because he's stupid. Well, he went to go do a PhD. He reads a lot of medical books, and because he's doing a PhD, and he picked up and looked at it and goes, "Yeah, this is good. This is," and that's about as the biggest compliment you'll get. He goes, "Yeah, this is good." Because we've read hundreds of self-development books, and usually it's just like, what is this? But he looked, because obviously he really appreciated the research and all the neurological stuff at the beginning. He's like, this is a good book.
Oh, well,
that's a review right there. A good book.
On Amazon. This is a good book.
This is a good book. It's printed nicely. Well done. Just stick it on a fridge.
All of those things are important to consider. So your final product. But one of the thing I struggled with was getting the correct editor, the correct graphic designer, and they are not cheap, guys.
No.
Now, I know people were saying to me who published books, as you say before, I'll just go to Fiverr, just they'll do this and they'll do that. And I thought, actually, no, I don't want to do that. This is my only ever book. Guess what? I want it to be as good as it can be. So the editor I chose is also person who edits for Richard Bandler and Owen Fitzpatrick. So I wanted it to be somebody that was versed in the language, if you like. And what I did is I asked her along to one of my courses so that she could experience IEMT as well for herself.
Oh, that's good.
So she had a much better idea then of when she was editing the book, how it needed to be.
I might be skipping forward a little bit on this, but you're already planning your next book, aren't you?
I am. If I'm permitted to. But but again, because, Jane, the editor, she said, God, there could be a series of these, and off this, and she's very interested in hypnobirthing, and I use this, as you know, for hypnobirthing. A lot of the stuff, patterns of chronicity, whatever. And I think it would be nice to kind of just funnel it off into different areas. She even said, slim it down and make a self-help version of it rather than a practitioner version.
Well, you could even have like IEMT for weight loss, IEMT for anxiety, IEMT,
stuff. All sorts of stuff. So we've kind of, got a little logo and bits and bobs going now. And so the next book is going to be, I don't like calling it the advanced course. I'm running the advanced course at the moment, but I like to call it just level 2 or other applications. Because it kind of makes it sound, some highfalutin thing. And it's just about getting more in depth, making it more 3D, you know, applying the techniques, but thinking about it in different ways, thinking about the language in different ways. But also there's some brilliant other people out there that have adapted IEMT and are using it in really innovative ways. And I wanted to bring that into the book. Yeah. So Hanneke, for example, in the Netherlands, and I've added a little bit of her work into my advanced course on grounds. So the grounds, which kind of fits into the 3 pillars model. Okay. So the grounds on which people are causing themselves issues, if you like. So I thought that'd be nice. And Mickey in Israel does some really interesting things around identity and swapping some of the questions around and all of that. So I thought, oh, that'd be really good, you know. So there's people that I think, oh, that's a really great idea. Let's put that into a adaptations of IEMT volume or a volume 2 or whatever you want to call it, really. So that is going to be. I think because
IEMT lends itself very well to a lot of stuff. I haven't found a single type of therapy or coaching or whatever that would not benefit by having some element of IEMT in there, you know. And it's like, and so that's why I'm getting a lot more coaches, therapists, hypnotherapists and stuff coming and sort of joining, you know, and sort of, and then, you know, the best thing is I say, right, do your case studies as IEMT, but then afterwards do what you want with it within reason. You know, don't rename it, but then report back. And, you know, we have on our respective groups, people coming back to say, you know, we get a lot of, I put up some stuff today, people working with, not military, first responders, police especially, and just responding back on how it's really helped in certain elements. Okay.
Exactly.
Let me get back to, had you finished your point? Sorry, on those.
Hadn't. There was a couple more.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, if you want to finish those, then we'll move on. Sorry.
Keep everything organised.
Yeah.
So my propensity is to be a tad disorganised. I'm a big picture person. I don't do specifics very well. But my husband is very specific, so he's kind of keeps me organised and keeps me on track. So that's important. So you can find stuff on your computer. What's the point? Set a deadline. So that, I mean, and I had set myself a deadline. For me, it was going to be out and published on the 1st of September. And I absolutely was able to reach that deadline. Cool. So that was important. And then, you know, before you've, you know, even got stuff out, write a first draft and send it to friends, family or whatever to read for you, because they will pick up on stuff, you know, because when I was writing it, I'm so used to the language I've written, I wouldn't see the mistakes and stuff that could be reworded better. So sending it out to other people, and that may have no background in IEMT whatsoever, but one of my nieces is, you know, she's an English teacher, so guess what, you know, she was able to
comes in handy
stuff and the way I've worded stuff, so that kind of thing is really useful, actually.
Great. So that's the process that you sort of, and I think that people understand what their process is once they've done the thing. And then they sort of say, well, actually, this is what. So I didn't really know what I was doing, but this is kind of what I'd do. And I suppose that the process of writing a second book would be a much faster.
So easy, it will be.
Yeah, because you've already done it once. You've already got the contacts and everything as well.
Exactly. Really, you know, and I was really, really lucky again through my creative writing teacher to find the graphic designer who you know, did the cover and a lot of the, so like the images in there of the patterns of chronicity, which I came up with the concept of, I drew them out, you know, longhand, and then he came up, and I just think they're fabulous, and they work so well, things like that. So you know, I'm just really lucky in that respect. And a lot of it comes down to luck, actually. I think, and finding the right people as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, well, the harder you try, the more lucky you become, I believe. You know, so especially right at the beginning of the book, there's some quite interesting diagrams with the eyes and the different muscles around the eyes. Did you sort of know about that before the research, or did you find that whilst doing the research about the eye muscles?
Well, I knew about it obviously because of my background training in pathology and my background in anatomy and physiology. actually having real eyes to play with and all their muscles and nerves to innovate and real people's brains to work with. So, you know, obviously coming from that background, but I just thought, you know, this is kind of the stuff that people might just want to ignore. But I think, it is about eyes. So it's useful to know how the eyes move, and also looking at contraindications, why, for example, damage to the brain or the eye could contraindicate IEMT. And so knowing how the nerves innervate the muscles, etc. And as I say, this is called eye movement, not vision, blah, blah, integral vision techniques. So it is about eye movement. So I just thought, that would be nice to just add in a little bit of extra flavor, but also, I have to say, it's because I'm a geek and I like all that stuff.
Let me ask you, have you actually had any personal experience of working with anybody who are partially sighted, blind, or
yes, I have, and I've taught a practitioner who was partially sighted as well, and it worked really well. And my top tip, obviously, for people this is going to be difficult on this background because it's showing up white, but if you're working with people that have partially sighted, use a light pen or use something that's really, really easy for them to see. So through the screen, have your bubbly or have a light pen, because that's really going to help.
Yeah, I was actually giving a talk once. It was at a university as well, as a high pressure one. And a guy on the front row was there with his carer, his assistant, and he was, I think he was completely blind. And I just said, well, can you actually move your eyes? And he goes, and he says, I think so. And I said, well, have a go then, even if you think you can move your eyes, because although it's about the eyes, it's not necessarily about the sight that we see, exactly. Is it? It's about the muscles as opposed to what you can actually see. So yeah, he's still got results, even though he's blind.
Also, the way I train people now, obviously because of Zoom, etc., is so I train people to verbally do the art, to direct people verbally. Yes. They might start off and just say, okay, so we're going to start up here. Yeah. And we're going to go down on this diagonal. That's it. Keep going. And then just drop the pen. That's it. Keep going in that trajectory all the way up, all the way down. So you're giving them, okay, so now you're going to scoot all the way along the top to the right. That's it. Then you're going to go down to the floor on that diagonal. Keep going. So you can actually do that through your verbal instructions as well. Yeah. And that's a really great way of
when I'm working with clients with one-to-one, I make sure obviously I'm the large image on their screen, and I'll start off and I'll say, we're going to go to the side and keep going all the way, and then to the other side. And so, I am sort of doing it verbally. I know some people have asked about, I'll get onto it a bit later about working with people online and stuff, but generally, obviously, when you're in front of somebody, you've got the whole field of vision. You can completely control their eyes. When you're doing it,
get them a little bit closer.
Get them as close as you can, so you can see, because you're really looking for the deviations and everything, and make sure it's like when somebody turns up and they're on like a phone in a cafe. It's like, come on, we need to. Okay, let me move on. I've got a lot of questions to get through. This is quite an interesting one. Do you ever see IEMT ever being adopted, accepted, or used by the NHS system?
Unlikely. Unless we can get some fMRI studies, get a whole raft of data and a big, huge cash infusion in order to do that. But also, Andy and I had discussed this several times, and he sort of was thinking about going down the line. We got the CPD, so that's giving it some sort of credence, hasn't it? But the one thing that is we are mindful of, and this happened with hypnobirthing, guys, was that hypnobirthing was about women and their partners and their babies, to empower them, to make, to give them the confidence to have better childbirth. It wasn't about empowering doctors, nurses, and midwives. And unfortunately, because everyone's picked up on this, and isn't this great, and doctors and nurses, etc., it's now become absorbed into the NHS in a very watered down form. They call it hypnobirthing, but it isn't. But it's become, so the emphasis of that dynamic, of that relationship, has gone back with the medical caregivers rather than the women, partners and babies. And so, Andy was thinking, oh God, what will probably happen is they'll sort of sanitize it, medicalize it, make it into their language, and it will lose the actual ethos of what IEMT was about.
Actually, no, I get that. Hopefully, one thing I'd like to see, I think on some you can already do it with private insurance companies, because I know that if you have private insurance, you can get even things like massages and stuff.
Hypnotherapy. We had a number for Bupa and things like that. So we get a lot of people with the insurance.
That's worth investing. I should do more work, to be honest. I really should do more work. But no, that's really great. And okay, this is quite an interesting one. Do you ever talk about the subconscious when talking about IEMT? No, that's quite straightforward. No, I do the same thing. I never talk about the conscious or the subconscious.
I talk about the brain,
and
what the brain is doing, and parts of the brain. And I do a lot of psychoeducation with people that come to see me as clients, because I want them to invest in their own change.
Yes,
not just come, and have therapy done. So so I will give them education. Again, comes back to hypnobirthing. That's what we do there. But I don't talk about conscious and subconscious because I don't think it's relevant with IEMT.
I had a really good question actually for myself. When I know you talk about it in your book, do you believe that when we work on a memory, an episodic memory, it's helping to make that memory semantic as opposed to episodic?
Possibly, but it depends on the memory. So I can't say it definitely is. And again, that's the kind of thing that some research,
but it takes on the characteristics of that. Yes,
absolutely. And we know that something happens. We don't quite know what, but it does shift it and change the format of that. I often say it's like it starts off like a big ball of stuff.
Yes,
it's all come together. And it's a bit like, it starts off as a jigsaw that's already completed. And so what the brain is doing is then breaking it up into its constituent pieces.
Absolutely. And reevaluating it. From where you are now.
Then actually process it, consolidate it, and then put it into the right parts of that long-term memory. Rather than having it, already as a nice big jigsaw puzzle to jump out at people. It's going to be much more difficult to get those pieces back together again.
Absolutely. And one of the things which I really do love when I'm working with a new client or just giving a demonstration to somebody, just doing the opening demonstration, just the simple pattern on just a memory, and just the look of confusion that they have. It's like it was there, but now it's not. Wait, one sec. And it's just because they're so used to going to a therapist and just like, so how are you? And it's just like, sit down, look at the, and it just, and I think that because IEMT is such a strange thing, that once somebody comes in and experiences IEMT for the first time, it sets up that session of, this is different. And it kind of gets them on board.
I never frame it as being a strange thing, and I never over explain it to people. And when people come to see me, I will say, possibility is they'll be using some eye movement work with you. That means this. Very, very matter of fact with them. Rather than, this is a strange, weird thing, because then they'll think, this is a strange, weird thing. This is just a normal, everyday thing that we use. And that's where, when people say, well, how do you sell IEMT to people? I said, I don't. I'll just do it.
Yeah, no, that's when I used to do big talks with people. I used to get, that's how I'd get. So if people are sort of thinking, how do I get more clients for IEMT? Give demonstrations, get people involved. You can do it on Zoom. You can now do it in person, apparently. And once you actually show people how to do it, and people go, but if I show them how to do it, they won't come and see me. Oh, they will. Because people are not lazy, but I could watch Gordon Ramsay cook all day. I'd still go to his restaurant.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always say you can do IEMT on yourself to a certain degree, but it's never going to be as effective as somebody doing it to you.
It depends on what you're doing it for, Matt, isn't it? If it's just something simple like a simple phobia,
Oh yeah,
You can zap it like a rewind really, really quickly. But most people aren't a simple phobia that come to see us.
No.
Most people have got lots and lots of complex things and stuff underlying. And it's not just a feeling, it's all the identity stuff and everything else lumped into it, and the metaphors that they're running. Yeah. So it's, it's not just how they are, it's that, who they're being. It's all of this that's so interwoven. So that's why, yes, having someone that has got the ears to be able to hear all of this stuff is useful. But if it's something simple, if it's, I call it like a first aid thing, then it can be used very, very quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, and I also use the other things like the episodic time and also the PSACs. I always use them on myself, and I always encourage my practitioners, do it on yourself. That sounds wrong, but do it on yourself, because also the more you do on yourself, the more effective will make you as a therapist, as you're conveying. You
got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
I absolutely agree. Just looking at some of the questions, we will be opening up the floor, the digital floor. This is a good question about working with clients. How would you deal with somebody having an abreaction whilst working with them online?
Well, I would buy the book, okay, and I'd go to chapter 15, because it tells you all you need to know about dealing with abreactions, whether they're in the room with you or whether they're through a screen. And basically, it's no different than what you would do with a person in the room. You give them time, you give them space, you break off the session if you need to break off the session. You get them to breathe, you get them to focus. And you may need to re-ground them and do some grounding exercises. Luckily through a screen, as I always say to people, I'm glad it's through a screen, because I can't rush in with the tissue. Not that I would anyway. That sort of thing. But so you just treat it exactly the same. But what we do, of course, with working through this medium is make sure that we do have a next of kin or a person that can be contacted. If I really felt someone is in real distress, then I've got contact details of somebody that can come and help them.
And hopefully as well, when you're when you're working with
I've never had that, by the way. I've never needed to do that.
No, I haven't. And because when you're working with IEMT, essentially we're trying to get the emotion before the abreaction happens. Sorry, my throat's gone a bit. And so when someone's getting upset or angry, if you just tell them to stop, it's amazing, because they generally will. Just stop, hold this feeling you have, and then you just put that into the integrative pattern. And that generally, so I've had very few instances where people have become really emotional or really angry,
stressed that they can't continue.
If you catch it before it, in the amplification stage, and generally I have found that works. It really works.
And being even through a screen, we can pick up on signal. So when we're talking 3-stage abreaction, you can see the change in someone's visuals, how they're looking at you, how they will answer a question, the inflection in the voice, tightening of the jaw or the hunching of the shoulders or whatever it is. So you can be aware that, likelihood is there's 3-stage abreaction in the making here. So as I say in the book, just treat it as you would normally, and do the non-combative stances, so that we're not going in and fueling the fire. They may still get to stage 3 irrespective of us. If they do, they do.
Well, I've got friends who get into an argument in an empty house, so some people are just like that, aren't they? So no, that's great. And I think that, again, what you're saying there about working with people online, this is why it's very important to have a good setup. I don't have my lights on, some side lights on, but usually when I'm working, I'll have like proper lights on if I'm in the evening. But when you're working with clients online, having them to have a good setup, with a nice camera, if possible, having a headset and being in a quiet place, because I think that sometimes when people are at home, they're a bit too relaxed, and they're sort of doing that whilst on Facebook, so you have to have their full
whilst the dog's running in while the kids are fighting in the background.
Or I've had some people driving. Actually, like driving.
No, I wouldn't permit that. I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. I didn't. I was like, what are you doing? I have to go out and get stuff. Right. Okay. Let me press on. We've got one here actually. I'll come on to that one later. I need to practice the word first. We all know what that is. With the content of the book, is it just the practitioner or the level one?
Yes, it is.
So it is, yeah. You don't go much into the advanced.
But what I've done, as I say, is I've done a little bit of background history. I've done a little bit of my background history. I've done some, eye stuff, some brain stuff, and then those couple of add-on chapters of working with ab reactions and how to work, through the screen in a setup, because more and more people are doing that. So I thought it was be important to add that in, but also with the identity, which is my favorite subject anyway. I've done a little bit of philosophy as well into identity. So I've kind of set it the way I do in my training. I never just launch into identity work. I always come at it in a kind of philosophical way. We have a group discussion about stuff. We start talking about identity and what that kind of means to people. Do a little exercise, so the who am I exercise, which I've put in there. So, and I revisit that anyway, always on the level 2 practitioner. So we always revisit that, because as we know, our identity is always in flux. It's very rare that someone, at age 3 is going to be the same person at age 30 and age 60. We know we have these different layers, and that identity fluctuates from one moment to the next sometimes. Not even one day to the next. It can be one moment to the next. Another identity will sort of manifest. So talking around all of that. So I've done a bit of that in the book, and then got into the process, and then just given some of my thoughts on the way I would kind of work. And on the level 2, we expand that even more. So we have more questions that we can sort of expand things out, and we can start looking at interplay with relationships, interplay between us and other people, and how I connect to you, how you connect to me, and how I feel I connect to you, but you may connect to me differently, and all of these sorts of things. So we can go into deeper. So people that are interested in, say, couples work, lots of stuff that we can do as well.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that I think when people are just getting into IEMT or hearing about IEMT, it's kind of like, you can remove negative memories, reduce emotions, stuff. But then as you get deeper and deeper into it, I think the identity stuff kind of. So I always say, basically, almost like the simple pattern, just on the memory. It's almost like just a bit of a showpiece. Really, it's very quick, very simple to do.
And and understandably, people, when they've got emotional stuff going on, want their emotions sorted and dealt with. But we know, why are they having that emotion in the first place? Who are they being whilst they're having that emotion? For me, everything comes down to identity, who the person is, and actually personality as well. So I've tweaked my course. My level 2 course is a lot different to other people. I've put on a lot of other stuff, so I also do a little bit of personality work as well, and look at the differences between personality and identity.
I always find it interesting when people say, I have an addictive personality. It's like, okay. Like, where'd you keep it, in a box? Or do you mean you? So you are an addictive?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you hear
ownership of that particular thing.
Okay, I hear that a lot. I have an addictive personality, but that is you still, though. In fact, I've actually got one about the. I don't really know what this means, but does IEMT have reveal? Doesn't make sense anyway. Does IEMT have reveal unconscious beliefs that may be holding us back from progressing some areas of our lives? I'll rephrase that. That's copied and pasted. That's not me.
Okay.
So basically, I can give a bit of an answer to this. I ask people about beliefs that they have, especially when they want to go do something. What beliefs do you have? And then you can just put that into the complex identity stuff. So when you're working with people, are you looking for beliefs to kind of come out, that especially when they're unconscious? I think the better term to say that is they're unknown, so they didn't know they had a certain belief. Do you ever work around that? I
don't sort of go digging for beliefs. I don't do that. I just deal with whatever comes up. I'm the way I'm listening to people is on a sort of multifactorial level. I'm very much listening for their metaphors, of course. Their autogenic metaphor is going to tell me a lot about who they're being, and then their beliefs about themselves, which are on an unconscious level. So they are that right brain stuff that is coming out through language. So I'm definitely, you know, aware of that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say, oh, that is a belief and we are going to do some belief work. You know, I don't work like that with people. I'm very conversational when I work with people.
Oh, I do it a bit, because when I'm talking, if I'm saying they want to go do this, I'll be like, okay, so what's the problem? I can't do. What is it about you? And say, oh, I am weak. I'm not good enough. So I'm always listening for the I am, you know, especially. Absolutely. And then we can put those into the complex, and then come back to when you think about this now. So, and I also say, do you have any beliefs do you have any beliefs or pronouns or nicknames or labels? And I try to bring all this out, especially before the session, to see how they're structuring the problem. Okay, I've just got actually one more question. And I'm anthropomorphic, and then I'm going to ask if people have some questions as well, and then we'll wrap it up. So, can you explain a little bit? I know this is more on the advanced course, about the
anthropomorphisms.
Yes, and the anthropomorph, yeah, and how it relates to IEMT. Yeah,
that thing in IEMT.
That big word, yeah.
If you'd rather call it personification, you can call it that as well. So for those that don't know what anthropomorphisms are, it basically is we take human characteristics and place them, give them to non-human things, entities. That could be inanimate objects, it could be animate objects, it could be other animals, it could be deities, it could be all sorts of things. It could be things that we have as make-believe things. So, you know, Father Christmas, Santa Claus, an anthropomorphism of various things. We, for example, some people give their boats or their cars names, don't they? So they suddenly take on this persona. So, you know, in a generalized term, that's what it means. But of course, it can go far deeper than that. And so when it comes to problem, issues, states and behaviors, things can become anthropomorphized as well. Yeah. So what starts off as, for example, you know, I have a problem with this particular feeling, you know, oh, I feel angry, or I feel jealous, or I feel whatever it is, then that can start to morph in time. It progresses. So it'll go from a, you know, I feel state for people to what you were just saying then, Matt, about an ownership stuff. Well, I have anger issues, or I have jealousy issues. I have cancer. I have HIV. I have asthma. So then there's some sort of ownership to that. And then it can progress even further. So then we start to associate with that thing and take on an identity. So I am, you know, an angry person. I am living with HIV. Yeah. Which kind of makes it seem that it's some sort of entity that I am living with it. It suddenly takes on a life of its own. And people start having relationships with the HIV or the cancer or the bulimia or the anorexia. Now, I do quite a lot of work with eating issues, eating disorders. I get people referred in. Often, well, every single client I've had, they have a relationship with their anorexia, their bulimia, whatever it is. It has an entity. Sometimes they have names. They can, you know, they can even draw them, you know. So it can then become this associated type of thing, you know. They associate, and then they can almost disassociate as well at times. So it becomes associated as an identity, then it disassociates and becomes a separate entity. Like, you know, here's the bulimia, I just thought I'd bring them with me, you know, that sort of thing. So that's what we're looking and listening out for in the language. And of course, yes, we can work on feelings around that, but also if somebody has already anthropomorphized a condition, then we can start to investigate that in terms of identity, in terms of some of those deeper questions around that identity. What does it want? What does it need? Yes. You know, those sort of questions. But it was interesting on the recent training. I'm in the middle of a level 2 now. And the lady said, well, you know, I got a niece who has anorexia. And I was told that was really good for them to create a sort of a personification, if you like, of this anorexia. And I said, absolutely not. You know, if they've already done that, then we need to dismantle that relationship. But say, no, it's a really good thing to give your anorexia a name and a this and a that. God, I can't think of anything worse. I think that's a slippery slope to, it's not my fault. It is not me. Basically, that's what people are saying. It's not me doing this. It's the anorexia. It's not me doing this. It's the anger. It's not me doing this. It's the whatever.
Yeah.
So part of that, you know, well, I'm only a victim. It's not me. It's other.
Yeah.
And that is a real slippery slope.
I've heard people describing they have a dark passenger or a dark side, you know, and yeah, but it is still you, you know, that's the
exactly. You know, and with things like one of the typical ones is jealousy, isn't it? And we call it the green-eyed monster. So we start to make, you can even demonize things. So we form demons or angels out of stuff, don't we? And give them these qualities, and children do this a lot. So actually children anthropomorphize a lot because they're listening out for, they're working off schemas, and the way they do that is learning from the adults around them. So they will personify things. It tends to diminish as we get older, but as I say, in some cases, when we get in that sort of me, child, victim-y state, we can then start to personify things or anthropomorphize things.
This is going a bit, I don't really want to open this up tonight, but this can often happen to when somebody has on with somebody else as well, their relationship. And this is how like stalkers and stuff starts, because you're seeing that person as a different person, and you know, and so people think they actually have a relationship. This fantasy relationship in their minds that doesn't exist. Absolutely. And then we're in the realms of, you know, psychotic, psychiatric stuff for some people as well. And always be aware, you know, I always say that with people, be aware that not everybody that we see is going to be just somebody that wants something sorted. Well, you know, chances are, if you see a lot of clients, you're going to see someone that has some psychiatric or psychotic issues. These are things to listen out and be aware of, so that you can then refer on. Because I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't diagnose people, and therefore, you know, if I think, oh, not quite sure about this, actually, I'm going to ask that person to, you know, seek other help. So even when I'm working with, you know, anorexia, other eating disorders, and make sure that I'm in contact with whoever it is they are under, whether it's the GP, whether it's the psychologist, psychiatrist. We've got a unit here which are really good. I've got Mind that are brilliant in the Wirral. So I liaise with them. They just bought my book. In fact, they're doing a training weekend, and they're all getting a copy of the book, you know, so things like that. So that's really, really good. So just make sure you've got a list of people that you can refer out to. I think that's really important, that basically if somebody comes to me and says, can I work with this client? Generally, the answer is no, because if you're having to ask me, you're generally knowing. So I refer a lot of stuff on because I'm not qualified to work with them, and you've got to think: will I exacerbate the situation, or is this like beyond my level? Because then it's a waste of their money, my time. You know what I mean? So you've got to sort of take these, and you've got to think, what can I do with the IEMT? And by being in contact with their other care providers, you can then update them to what you've done. And that's worked really well. Guys, I'm just a bit mindful of time, and we probably will go over by a few minutes, but I want to first of all thank you so much, Sonia, for answering all my questions. The questions have been answered so far. I'm going to open this out. If you have a question, I'll tell you, just put a hand sign or something, and then you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question yourself. So if anyone has a question, just put a little high five sign thing. I should be able to see it on the
gallery on, and then I can see.
Oh, here we go. It's Callum. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Sonia. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Callum.
So I'm not super familiar with the IEMT process, but I have had a fellow practitioner utilize it on me twice. It's been very interesting for me. I guess I just wanted to ask about the kind of safety of it. So my cursory understanding is that it basically scrambles the associated or the triggers, right? So how do we know that that is a safe thing to do? And I totally resonant on the brain studies that you were talking about, Sonia. So I just love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, well, as I say, it's absolutely impossible to say something is 100% safe, whatever safe means. I don't know what safe means in your context, but because we know we've been working with IEMT now since 2007. There are many practitioners throughout the world. Andy did a lot of research from his clinical background to set up the questioning. And what we do know is that, I don't know how many clients you've seen, Matt, but I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Yeah. I've never had any safety issues. But, if there is, and if someone reacts or whatever it is, then hopefully we've got enough training, as I say, to stop the process, to, get somebody back and grounded, to have safety protocols around, such as contactable people, that sort of thing, so that if we feel that actually, okay, this might be somebody with a psychosis and I'm not qualified to do that, that we stop that process as soon as we can. But as I say, personally, I've never had any freak out or do a wobbly or anything like that. Yeah, I've had people say, oh God, I've got a headache now, or I've got that. But that actually can be part of the process. And part of the process is when people are resisting the change as well. They can start to get certain responses and reactions.
Just from my experience, generally when I'm working with somebody, either IEMT is going to work and help or it doesn't. That's generally sort of what happens. So it either helps with the relief of the thing, because remember, IEMT is not exacerbating a situation, it's reducing the reaction. So it's not scrambling the brain as such. No, it's a change of perception. It's a change of perception.
It is a change of perception. That thing scrambling, I've never heard that terminology as far as IEMT is concerned. And scrambling triggers, I've never heard that. What I do know as well is, of course, IEMT is not just eye movements. And this is the problem. This is the problem with the name of this modality. There's so much more to IEMT than just moving people's eyes around. And if you do no eye movements at all, but work on someone's patterns of chronicity, get them mindful of that process that they're doing that is interfering with their life, you do nothing else in a session but enable somebody to know they are a maybe man or a great big what ifer, then give them some coaching and training on how to start to make those changes consciously. It's done a massive thing for somebody.
Absolutely.
Because you know what, because it's not known in any other modalities, is it, these things. So
but generally,
very clarifying. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question, Mariana. You have a question if you want to mute yourself.
Hi. Yes. I'd like to just know. I love the identity work, and I really enjoyed it when I did the training. But sometimes when I explain it to people, the way that is in a book, they don't always seem to get it. As I thought that I got it. Do you have any other tips that how you explain?
Definitely. That's why I start to talk about identity in generalistic terms. I also, it's very, very important that you have the questionnaire and you've got a set of questions so that you can read through the questionnaire beforehand, or you do, like I do, I always do a little 30-minute sort of free consultation with people. So I'm listening to their language and I'll say, oh, that was a really interesting statement. You just said, I hate myself, or I will say, oh, when I was reading through your form, I picked these statements out because there seems to be on some identity level, some sort of inner conflict going on. So yes, we can have conflict between me and you and me, but we can have internal conflicts going on. So then I'll start bringing it in that aspect. And this that I want this and I do that and you use I an awful lot in talking. So I'm interested in this I. So this I, who is this I? Then I go into the who am I exercise. So I'm leading them into identity then through the I. The I is the operating system. It's the most important part of our ego state. So start with the I and start with the who am I, and then they're much more likely to get it when you start explaining the pronoun work.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
What I found as well when doing the I, me, self, you setup, the location, what's going on around, and the age, the more you do it and just trust the process, the more comfortable you'll get with it. What I found in feedback from practitioners is that because they find it strange and weird, they're kind of projecting that once they're doing it.
That's why I never frame anything as being strange or weird.
So I definitely find essentially trust the process. We've done this enough times to know that it will generate results, and the answers are it is a bit of a strange thing.
There's no right or, and that's what I always say, there's no right or wrong here.
Yeah.
Whatever answer comes up. We're just exploring some interesting sort of possible inner conflicts or your inner relationship with yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's all we're doing.
And then obviously once you get that, you can then break it down to the I and the self, and then the feeling of hate or despite, and then you start to break it all down. And then
third party things that could be coming in, or any other names that they could be struggling with, etc., etc. And then of course, then we do the deeper work on level 2 at looking at those interrelationships as well, which, if somebody's coming because they're having issues with another half or whatever, then we will want to look at on that level as well.
You've got to remember, a lot of the times things aren't therapy. I always say this, when you're working with a client and they go, this is therapy I can work on, this I can't do this. This is coaching, or this is something completely different to what I can help with. So I think it's just, there's a little adage, you've got to set realistic expectations, never make an outcome, never sort of form an outcome, as it were. I know in NLP it's very common, but we don't do that.
It is, and we talk about that, don't we? This is sort of, of course, people are coming because they want to feel better about stuff. Totally get that. That's a goal, that's an outcome. But if we get so bent out of shape of they've all got to feel great when they leave, they're not all going to feel great when they leave, And if you're only doing short sessions as well, you're not going to get through very much, perhaps in an hour session. Mine are 2-3 hours. So you've got to kind of get out of this, I've got to have a result, I've got to have people feeling really great, because that isn't realistic. And you know what, if they felt shit for 20 years, 1 more week, 2 more weeks, is not the end of the world for them.
Exactly.
It really isn't. No. Don't be frightened, and remember, your emotional state must be stronger than their problem. Has to be your mantra. Has to be.
You can't sort of cave in or do what the client. So imagine going to the dentist and you've got a cracked tooth, and they go, all right, that one hurts. All right, we'll leave that one. You're not helping.
Do something else.
Does anybody have any other questions? Just please put your thumb up or send me a message. We'll get through a few more. So anybody else have any questions either about the book or about IEMT?
Buy the book.
We'll get to that. We'll put some links and stuff at the end there, actually, for the book. Does anybody have any questions at all? Any other questions? I'm trying to view through to see if I can see anybody. Anybody have any questions? Any last questions?
Any more for any more?
I'm gonna say we might finish relatively on time, which is not what I was expecting. Who's moving there?
Matt, did you say? Sorry, can I just ask about the book? Did you say you're going to put some links to where we can buy the book?
Yeah, I'll send it out afterwards.
Would you like me to tell you? Because it's very simple.
Do you want to put it into chat as well?
It's very simple. You can buy it on Amazon, obviously, depending on where you are in the world. Or you can, if you're in the UK, you can buy it from me directly. So you can go onto my website, which is integralEyemovement.com. You'll see buy book, click on that. And if you want it, inscribing or anything like that, just ping me an email as well. And I'm very, very happy to do that. I've got about 20 books left. So I'm very, very happy if someone wants, me to send them to you. If not, just go to Amazon and go there. The Amazon copy is not as nice, I have to say. The quality is not as good. Really? As you were saying, Matt, the quality of this version is lovely. And I've managed to put some colour images in this one. Whereas Amazon, it's either colour or it's not. And of course, then the price goes through the roof. Wow, I've been a cheapskate and done it black and white inside, guys. Quality of the cover's not as good. Quality of the paper's not as good. But it's still actually for Amazon, I'm really impressed with it. I have to say, I am really impressed with it. And they get it out to you really quickly.
Yeah,
it's on Amazon Prime in the UK at least.
Very good.
So yeah. Nice
we've got, well, like I say, I will send a link out to
Please,
that afterwards as well. Someone's just said, what's the best way to get started? Well, the best way is probably the book and doing a practitioner course.
Yeah.
It was a good time to say, Sonia, what courses do you have coming up at the moment?
Yes, I have. Well, I'm in the middle of a level 2 at the moment, and I have a level 1 coming up on the week. I'm splitting it over 2 weekends. So it's the 23rd, 24th, 30th and 31st of October. So we're doing Halloween, which I love.
Wow.
Might even dress up, you never know. But
I will not be dressing. I have got a practitioner level on this weekend, which is Saturday and Sunday. I will, although I'm recovering from COVID, I will be fully functional. I'll be fine. I've anthropomorphized COVID as a
that is COVID.
So yes, there's also on the association website, there's a list of all the trainers, and most of them are virtual at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
But I like I say, if I've got one on this weekend, I think I have a spare place because somebody won't be able to make it for some reason. But I only usually take 12 people, so I can give everybody a lot of attention. So if anybody's interested, just drop me a message and I'll let you know the details.
The other thing I wanted to mention was the tea parties. Remember, they are free. They're for everyone. You don't have to be an IEMT practitioner. Again, you go onto my website, go onto, it says bookings, but you're going to change it to events. And just scroll down. I've got 2 up there at the moment. One which is on neurological disorders in November, and one which is going to be on sand play with Masha in December. But I've already got some lined up for next year, including social panoramas. So I am going to be having Lucas Dirks come and do a talk for us as well. So they're all free.
And when you say sand play,
yes,
what do you actually mean?
Sand play therapy. So it's good for children. So
right. Okay.
Children with traumas, etc. So getting them to use metaphor in form of sand play to go through their issues and problems. It's not just for children. Adults that may find difficulty in talking about issues. And Masha is a psychotherapist and counsellor as well. But I just thought it might be something that would be interesting for people. And
different.
The tea parties, it's not just about IMT. I bring in people from all sorts of backgrounds and fields of different stuff that could be complementary to IMT. So I just think, they're really nice. And the one in December, I'm asking people if you want to just do a small donation. I'm doing the Salvation Army this year. I do a sort of different charity every year. So if you want to, you don't have to. It's just, if you want to, that's great. Because it's Christmas and I just thought it'd be a nice thing to do. But I say they're all free and love to have you there. It'd be fantastic.
I'll also send out those links as well to everyone who's signed up for this. And if people just want to contact you in general, where's the best places to find you?
Yeah, okay. So obviously there's the Facebook group, Eye Movements on Change or whatever I've called it this week.
Yeah.
Because it keeps changing.
Yeah, I know.
You can email me directly, sonia@soniarichards.com. Dead simple. So you can contact me through that. You can contact me through my website, integraleyemovement.com. There's a little contact thing there. The other thing that I do, of course, is run metaphors of movement courses. So I've got another introduction coming up end of November, I think that is.
Okay.
Check my diary. But again, mixing in metaphor work with IMT, oh my God.
Yeah.
Especially with that identity stuff is just fantastic. And then I'll be running a level 1-2 next year. So, just cool. Say hello.
Excellent. Just Google your name. I think that's everything. If everyone's done with questions, we've done an awful lot. Cool. Just from people messaging me. Excellent. Just people messaging me to say thank you. In fact, what I'll do is I'll actually turn this chat off now. If anybody does want to, if anybody wants to put any thanks messages, whatever, the chat is now open, so you can just message other people other than me, or you can just send me messages. I'm always thankful of messages. I'll take I'll take any messages from anyone all the time. Cool. Sonia, massive thank you firstly for writing the book and also for taking the time this evening. It's been really, really interesting.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we didn't really know sort of how it was going to go. We didn't really have much plans, but we had a lot of questions and a lot of people interested.
Yeah, but you and I always have a lot of fun when we get together and have a chat, don't we? So
yeah, we do. But be careful what you say there, though, because that's very be careful at starting rumors. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Cool. People saying they bought the book. Really good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Yes, thank you to everyone who has bought the book. Really, really, it means so much to me for your support. So.
And hopefully you're going to get it out to local suppliers and stuff, do you think, in the future? Or
yes, I'm going to put it on Kindle as well, so it'll be available on Kindle.
Brilliant. So. And audiobook, audiobook.
Well, I have been asked to do an audiobook.
It'll be about 100 hours, but
I may well do that.
Brilliant. So. All right, Sonia, thank you so much to everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to close this down in just a couple of minutes. So thank you, Sonia, and I will see you all on Facebook.
Thank you all. Yeah.